Welcome to the Innovation Room, the space we explore the application of technology and AI in business, the practical and sometimes philosophical ideas shaping our future.
In this episode of the Innovation Room, I'm delighted to welcome back Andrew Fahey, CEO of Briars Group. You might remember him from our crowd favorite episode on M&A, where we tackled the question, can you acquire innovation? And spoiler alert, it was one of our most popular conversations, and Andrew is back here to raise the bar even higher today. Having had the privilege of working with Andrew for over a decade, I've watched him master the art of blending innovation with culture to fuel rapid business growth, something easier said than done. This time, he's diving into real-world case studies, sharing how Briars is using AI to supercharge their team's capability and redefine client experiences in really practical ways. And if that wasn't enough, he also reveals another dream Innovation Room guest complete with a Jurassic Park-inspired ethical twist that is equal parts thought-provoking and also entertaining. I'm Lindsay Jessup, CEO of Geeks. I know you'll leave this episode with plenty of inspiration and hopefully a laugh or two to help take that next step in your AI journey. Let's get started. Well, good evening, I guess, here from London and up north in Manchester, UK. We have Andrew Fahey back with us from a repeat Innovation Room guest, which we're very grateful to have with us. He's CEO of Briars Group. So first of all, welcome back, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Would you be willing to give a bit of an intro of yourself?
Yeah.
For those that missed the first episode.
Yeah, well, I think for the first episode, I was the CEO of a different business as well, so it's sort of useful to do this. So, so Andrew Fahey, I'm the CEO of the Briars Group, and really simplistically, we provide outsourced professional services for businesses that are looking to expand into new geographies or just seek greater efficiencies in their own domestic region. So we block and tackle all those regulatory headaches that come with as your business grows, and we do this through offering outsourced accounting, tax, payroll, HR, all of those services on a subscription basis. So we just become an extension of your business, allowing you to focus on what you do best. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here for a second time.
Yeah. And for those, maybe we can even link to the clip or something. Because what I would say is, I believe the topic we covered, which would be a couple years ago now, was about can you acquire innovation as part of M&A? And I don't know if I ever told you this actually, but it was one of our most viewed. It actually got some of the most positive feedback we had. So yeah, you're definitely top ranked in that. And I think hopefully that's a good hook to get people to keep listening what sort of gems you have for us today. But spoiler for the last one, I think the result was you can acquire innovation. And I think how you navigated your former businesses and how that came about prove that. So that's fantastic. And we're excited to see what you do next. So as you know, being a guest in the Innovation Room, we like to ask that question about if you could bring anyone into the Innovation Room. And the difference now to then is AI is really taking off. So we're going to make yours a bit more specific, which is if you could bring anyone to the Innovation Room to drive AI innovation specifically for global growth, who would it be and why?
Okay, so it's a good question. So one of the challenges I've had when thinking about AI, and this actually started probably in COVID times. I'll explain it a little bit better now, is especially in how we communicate as humans. So sort of human interaction, we require lots of sensory inputs, depth perception, non-verbal cues, and some of that gets diminished in a virtual world, and especially with the advancements of AI. And so I'd want somebody in to help me think through that problem. So somebody like Simon Sinek and how he sort of looked at leadership behaviors and innovation and how they sort of intersect. And I guess what I'd want him to do for me is to be my Jeff Goldblum character from the original Jurassic Park, where he sort of challenged on just because you can bring dinosaurs back? Should you? I'd want that same level of sort of challenge around where should we use it? How should we use it? How should it be deployed? So I guess that's the person I'd like in the room and some context as to why.
Oh, very interesting. I like that one. It's not what I expected, actually. I think last time it was John Lennon and James Dyson, I believe. My memory
Yeah,
actually
yeah. Oh,
is
very well
telling
done.
me.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah,
good. You've got lots of different dinner parties. You've got to have different guests coming to them.
absolutely. I think what strikes me in that, which I really like, and probably why I've always enjoyed working together, is what Simon Sinek brings, and I think what he's famous for is also his optimism. Like that's
Yeah.
his kind of brand, is how he brings optimism to leadership and solving problems. But equally, as you said, he does that in a way that makes you think differently, just because he
Yeah.
can, should do.
Yeah.
So, and more than ever in the age of AI, I think that is very powerful. So I think he would be a good person. I'm a big fan too.
Excellent.
So yeah, let's explore a few key questions today then. Let's explore in the context of the future of AI in advisory for international growth, which is really actually probably a conversation many people are asking themselves now with all of the different things happening in different economies. We've gone through many elections. We've gone through a few years of election years. We've gone through different policies and regulations, and there's so much happening. So now, with all of that happening, plus the AI rapid evolution, how can we use AI-driven centralization and sentiment analysis? And how do you plan to use it for Briars to give, for example, personalized or region-specific services with what you do?
It's a very big question. It's a very big
Big
question.
question.
So, yeah.
Lots of them.
So I guess first of all, when I think about the Briars Group, I break it down into its simplistic form. So we're an accountancy practice, a HR consultancy business, a payroll business, and a sort of consulting firm. So when you see it like that, just because the product that we provide is outsourced services on a global expansion, you actually unearth a whole plethora of different opportunities in sectors that have historically been quite archaic because they work on a time build basis. So some accountants want to take a while to deliver some activities because they can charge more. And so when I think of the world like that, there's a huge plethora of opportunities for us. And then I guess when we take those down into the sort of distinct parts, then there's process automation. So we're across our accountancy divisions, our payroll divisions. Can we start to integrate AI to take away those activities where historically people have just checks and balances, take things from certain sets of data and import them into other sets of data. So we're really focusing on automating operational tasks, how we receive data from our clients, how we vet, validate that data, and how we sort of incorporate it into our world. And that's a huge undertaking for us because we have every facet of accounting, tax, and payroll in over 100 different countries, so across 100 different regulatory environments as well. So we're right at the start of this journey at this moment in time. Where we are further advanced is how we support our client services, and we call them global account managers. And ultimately, the role of a global account manager is many of our clients have very complex delivery requirements, lots of moving parts over multiple countries. And the benefit we bring is that they don't need to think about that. So we give them one person, one global account manager who sort of quarterbacks all of those things. But that just moves that complexity down to them. So they're dealing with multiple operational teams across different continents and countries, across different service providers. So the first thing we've really started to embrace in terms of AI is sentiment analysis. So all our internal communications now, in terms of email and phone calls, are run through a sentiment analysis tool, and gradings are sort of provided and trapped within our CRM system, and where then certain triggers have occurred, these are then passed to the global account managers. And we're also looking at sort of, I suppose, project management's the simplest way. So where there are set accounting schedules or timeframes or payroll calendars that we operate to, we're now using a mixture of sort of process automation and AI to predict where delays could occur, or where we potentially have issues because of public holidays, or we have, certain countries, or we have issues with sort of capacity planning, and we're really starting to drive that into the global account manager to allow them to manage the delivery better. And then the final part is probably not the most sexy, but it certainly helps, is to really help drive and build an FAQ and automation engine. So we're using it to start to learn around what are the types of requests that our clients send us. How did we respond to that? What was the information we shared? And almost build this interactive knowledge base. So our people, our expert advisors, these global account managers, are now underpinned with proactive advisory information built
Mm,
from sentiment analysis, proactive delay analysis, and FAQ automation. So I guess they're the two areas, Lindsay, sort of real wading through really complex and archaic professional services and looking how we can get people out of basic tasks and
mm.
then really improving our CX at the front of house.
What I heard there is you're kind of breaking down in a really practical way for people the way that you can move from getting AI ready, using information that you have to be AI powered. And that can look different to different businesses. But what you just described was very practical, pragmatic examples of how you're using the technology to power the quarterbacks of your team. If
Yeah,
I keep with your examples, um, if I could just explore that a little bit,
yeah.
how have you found the adoption process of the AI? Like, was there anything interesting as your team got using it? Any challenges? Any top tips you'd give people?
Yeah, I think any leader that's looking to do this, and everybody will be on their own journey, and there's a level of education to be done around why we're trying to do this. If you take the extreme negative perception is you're trying to automate jobs.
Mm,
And so one of the things that we did really carefully was to talk about the value proposition and how our people are our greatest assets, and having them touching the clients at the right time in the journey, and how we should be repositioning them in terms of the value add that they can deliver and how the clients perceive that. So we really incorporated it as part of a broader change program rather than it just be about AI. And I think that allows people to think about it differently. So I suppose learn one there is we tackled some of the fear head on
mm,
and made it part of that. And then the positive side of that, the sentiment analysis has been unbelievable in terms of the pace and efficiency and proactiveness it's brought into the global account management team. And I think any trepidation to start with has been blown away. And,
mm,
on a no names basis and very stereotypical, but I'll share a really interesting sort of analogy. Even understanding how different countries have different tonality to the emails. So something that can appear aggressive or abrupt in one culture doesn't necessarily translate to another culture, and seeing how we can teach the sentiment analysis tool that. So, from the early days of receiving an out of office from one of our, it was a Scandinavian operational person, flagged up immediately that this is a really abrupt conversation. We need to jump on it straight away. And it's just learning that, and sort of it's just empowered them with a great sense of, actually, I can now probably deal with more clients than I did before because there's this tool that's going along and just testing that the plates are spinning correctly. So as I get to them and I can add my value,
mm.
I'm less worried about what's happened. So I guess summarizing that, we got ahead of it and made it a broader change program, not just, and that's easier for me because we're doing lots of that at the moment anyway. It's just coming to my first year anniversary, and so it was sort of part of, I positioned it very early. But second, the wins on the sentiment analysis have just been, revolutionary for the guys.
That's fantastic. That was really interesting for me to hear. And I've seen different applications as well, and we've run different even focus groups internally to understand how people are feeling about AI. One of the things I guess I would sort of pitch to you or ask you about the sentiment analysis and why that was so well received is really interesting that they're actually seeing, it's almost like embedding a little bit of training and growth and emotional intelligence progress as well, from what I was hearing.
Yeah.
And what was interesting in the focus groups that I've run, one of the interesting pieces of feedback that I received from my team in particular, but I've also seen in action in other businesses, is that there's an element of humanity. There's so many positive things, but one of the tricky bits is depending on how and who gives feedback, whether or not it's received or even spotted and actually taking the time to give it, can often be met with either defensiveness or not really taken on board or not understood. And it's really interesting you say that, because a lot of my team and others that I've heard in examples like that, they feel empowered, but also it's growing them as part of the power, and they feel less judgment, more capable, and that's one of the, you're nodding, so that's a good sign. So it shows that we're kind of feeling and experiencing the same things. And to me, what that shows is with the right adoption of AI, how you can create that cycle and build that is if you see that aspect of how you can use AI to level up. I've personally seen teams go from perhaps even junior contributors with the right application of this kind of technology. I feel like I'm dealing with a senior in a lot of the like day-to-day job aspects. They're automatically leveled up.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And there was, without appearing too contrived, but we purposefully started with the global account managers rather than a role that you could potentially replace through process automation of sorts, because this is genuinely the worst thing that can happen to a global account manager is they're caught by surprise, something they didn't realize, whether that be from one of the fragmented service delivery teams in different countries or by the client themselves not being happy with something. So it's a great case study for us to take to the rest of the business, and everybody can see, and everybody benefits from the clients being happier as well. So I completely agree with that, and a little bit of it was purposely done that way to create the internal PR that we wanted.
I think it's interesting, a few other points there that I've seen when I see AI adoption succeed. One of the important aspects is it's not about asking what AI can do for your business, what AI can do for you, but it's how you want to use AI to move your business plan forward. And I think some people don't join that up. I think we've actually talked about this briefly on your podcast as well, and that is a huge part. So I love that you're like, it's part of a bigger plan, so everyone can understand how it's connected. But also, it's really interesting when you said how you chose where to start, and that is a really important point that I'm not sure people always think about. They just kind of go with an instinct to what's happened. So it was interesting to hear that you chose, for example, a very key client touch point that can sort of make or break how a team feel, like more holistically, and then you can create more wins off of that. So
and this isn't my first rodeo at trying to put innovation into professional services businesses as well. So, I get the benefit of pretending this was a seamless thing that happened first time in this conversation, but that's actually 10, 15 years of trying change programs in these professional service environments and learning it, and the adoption of AI. In this case, you benefit from all that learning that had gone on before as well. So definitely, it's really tempting to go with what can save us the most money more quickly, but sometimes that's not the smartest way to look at it. It's the value-driven one rather than cost-saving.
That's a really interesting point. Implementing innovation. Is there anything different that you find in implementing AI versus historically? We've even worked on innovation projects together. What would you say was the difference?
Only so the fundamentals of the project remain the same. The hard part really is the scope is almost defining itself as you're doing it. In most projects, of the defined scope and you're doing this, I think most people understand that we're only just scratching the surface of the power of how we use AI in all aspects of our life. And it's evolving at such a rate that whatever project methodology you apply to this project, it's likely that the scope has changed significantly as you do it as well. And that's you and I talked about this, that can be sort of for the right kind of person, it can be sort of invigorating, and for some people it's terrifying at the same. So I think that would be the big change for me, that almost the scope of it is evolving more quickly than the implementation of it, really.
Yeah. One of the things, and I always welcome feedback on this, that I find fun and challenging in some of the educational pieces that we do is around so we do some topics on how do you invest in AI and AI budgeting. And part of the challenge, and accountants, it would be interesting to see what you're doing with this as well, is AI is, of course, a technology. And there's different ways you think about how you invest in technology. But also, it's almost like you think of it as human capital, because the AI it's an intelligence. It completes things with its own intelligence, and doesn't necessarily, especially as it gets more intelligent, shouldn't be limited by human intelligence, if that makes sense. So that all being said, what is really interesting in this is you don't expect to hire a person and train them once and that they will do the same thing forever and it'll be able to perform. And I think we apply almost like a project mindset to things that will need to continue to evolve as they learn more and upskill more.
But
So it'd
isn't
be interesting.
that's a really interesting point, isn't it? And that sort of leads on to the point I was making previously, that we're currently treating this as maybe an R&D cost in the P&L, or a sort of CapEx investment. And by the time we get to the end of the project, maybe the regulatory environment evolves enough to actually treat investment in AI in the same way as you would procurement of personnel, and the
Yeah.
accounting and tax treatment changes relative to that. And I don't know,
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, who
Great
knows?
example. Yeah,
You're the expert on that one, not me. So keep me posted on. That's just the way my brain is going, and it's different. So how
yeah.
will that take shape in the future? Who knows? We're getting a bit ahead of ourselves there. But moving on now
Yeah, it
into
felt like we were applying employment taxes to AI. Then all of a sudden, that's where we were sort of heading.
exactly. And well, a fun fact, and don't super quote me on this because I'm putting this on a podcast, so definitely fact check this. But I saw some early indications. I want to cite McKinsey, but in the next few years, there's this new concept called AI agents. And the difference between how we're working with AI now is very synchronous. We ask it to help us with some things, and it gives us what we need at the end. We get to that outcome, and it makes us more productive and more efficient. Where we're moving to in the next few years is agents going and completing tasks for us. It has access to data information, and we can say, book us this resource, complete this information for me, generate this report, and it has access to the information to do that to the standards we need, and the humans are just finessing. Now, what's really interesting in all of that is understanding that I think it was McKinsey was projecting in the next few years, about 30% of the workforce will be literally that. And so that is when I think those conversations will come. Well, if 30% of the workforce is completing tasks in that way, how do we think about it differently? But I don't predict that that'll start happening until we start to see that shift. So in what ways can real-time AI insights and automation define advisory roles? So as you said, you have literally decades of experience in this in professional services. And I'm really keen to get your views on this as well. Even though I'm in a different space, it's still very much advisory and professional services in some respects. So how do you think the landscape will change?
So I'm going to start by insulting the industry and then work my way back, I suppose. So we we do all talk about ourselves as advisors, and everybody competes against each other with proactive advisory in the strap line. But ultimately, if you say let's use accounting because it's just the simplest and easiest way. Traditional accounting by its very nature is really retrospect. So that you finish the period that your year end is and the information sent to your accountant, and he might have it on a semi-frequent basis, but there's then a period of analysis that's done several months after the year end, and which leads up to some sort of strategic conversation 6 9 months after the year end where advice is given, but advice is given to a period of time that's already gone that you can do nothing about unless AI has invented time travel, and then maybe that's what we could do. But for the purpose of this, so the it it is a little bit of an oxymoron in terms of it's actually telling you what you can do next year to stop it happening, not actually going back and fixing the problem. And that's traditionally how all professional services work. And I alluded to earlier, they've never really wanted to change because the pricing and the charging model does that as well, and it allows them to resell the same little bit of advice over and over and over. And what AI does is it totally flips the scripts on that. It allows us to look at real-time data and performance. It allows us to run predictive analysis across that. And so and that can be sensitivities that include um, environmental sensitivities. It can be revenue and cost sensitivities. It could be change within government and tax rate sensitivities instantaneously. So it in one way, it allows professional services people to actually do what they've pretended they've been doing anyway. But when you actually break it down to that, actually in those advisory conversations, you can run real-time sensitivities with your client based on things like the risk appetite, environmental, sort of strategic opportunities, and can power that sort of combine that real-time performance metrics. uh, that that is so different. If you think of and I can say this, having worked in the sectors for over 2 decades. Bad reputation, professional advisors, accountants, lawyers, HRs. You just take the money and give me. This actually allows us to do what we've said we've been doing. It's a fundamental paradigm shift. The ability to do that, and I think if you think about it like that, it's such a liberating enabler that gives you this ability to shape and model performance of your client and then advise them in a way that you'd have never been able to do before.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think tying that into, I think there's a few concepts that I've seen people struggle with, especially as you said, that a lot of business models are just, some of them are more difficult to transform than others, like legal, accountancy, etc. And especially those T&M models. And I think that that is something that, which you touched on, and it sounds like we're on the same page here, in the next few years is going to probably radically shift to outcomes led and therefore customer experience led solutions, that hyper personalization that you can do to add real impact.
Yeah. It
But it's
used
not
to make
easy
me
to do.
it used to make me shudder when a tax advisor or a lawyer would say, "Let me go and think on that," because they're just setting you up for the sort of you
Yeah.
already know the answer, but you're going to pretend to sort of think about that. Where actually it changes that world, doesn't it? Where actually now
Yeah.
it's giving opinions based on those analysis. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No, it's very, very exciting time. Well, thank you for sharing your insight with us. Just to close out, one last question for our audience. If you had any parting advice for leaders looking to expand internationally and innovatively, what would you give them?
I'm going to try and link the AI conversation to the international expansion of global expansion because they are similar in the rate of evolution. So the rate businesses that would never have previously thought about expanding globally and internationally. It's the change is significant. The adoption of virtual technology, the ability to be able to manage people now in different time zones and layers has really supercharged that appetite to do that. So it's going to happen, and it's going to be forced on more businesses by their potentially competitors than they realized it would. And I guess really simply, the advice would be just don't go it alone. So many people have done this before. There are so many valuable lessons. Surround yourself with people that you can stand on the shoulders of those giants and learn from the information that's gone before you. There's a similar stat to 50% of businesses fail in their first year. It's a similar sort of statistic happens for businesses that trying to expand into a different region if they don't give it the right care, attention, and effort. So it just really simply just, you know, surround yourself with partners who've done this before that can supercharge that knowledge and experience and allow it to be a really lucrative success for you, rather than a sort of um, a millstone around your neck that's a cost center that ultimately ends up being shut down as an R&D project.
Good advice. Top tip. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really excited to, again, hopefully in the future, we'll have you back and we'll be hearing the next stage of your, taking over the world mission and how AI is helping you do that. So thanks for joining us, and hope to see you soon.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. I always enjoy it. It's great to see the work you guys are doing, and always happy to be involved.